Let's talk about money. It kind of runs the world, but nobody ever really gives you the instruction manual. Well, that's what we're doing today. We're going to pull back the curtain on the big financial ideas that control everything from your paycheck to your future. And we're going to do it in a way that actually makes sense. Ready? Let's get into it. We have to start right here because this quote just nails a feeling we all know, right? You work all month, you see that beautiful notification that you've been paid, and then you look at your bank account, and the number is smaller. It's that moment you realize a piece of your hard-earned cash just vanished into thin air. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to track down that disappearing money from your paycheck. Then, we'll get into the invisible forces of interest and inflation. After that, we'll decode your financial reputation, figure out how to navigate the big economic ups and downs, and finally, get to the good part, making your money start working for you.
Okay, let's kick things off with the one thing we can all relate to, getting that paycheck. Because if you can understand this first step, the rest of the system starts to make a whole lot more sense.
Let's put some real numbers on this. Say you had a good month. You earned a solid $2,000. Awesome. But when you check your account, you only see $1,456. So what happened to that other $544? Well, it went to those invisible forces we were just talking about, taxes.
And this is a perfect breakdown of where it all goes. See that? A slice goes to federal and state taxes. That's for stuff like roads and schools. But then you've got these other two big chunks, Social Security, which you can think of as a retirement plan the government makes you pay into, and Medicare, which is a health insurance tax for older folks. So yeah, a good portion of your money is already out there doing things before you even get a chance to touch it. Okay, so you take what's left, your take-home pay, and you deposit it in a bank. Now, most of us picture our money sitting in a big, safe vault, but that's not really how banks work. A bank is more like a financial matchmaker. Its whole job is to connect people who have extra money with people who need to borrow it.
So how does this matchmaking actually work? Well, it's a pretty wild system. When you deposit, say, $1,000, the bank doesn't just hold on to it. They're legally required to keep only a tiny fraction of it. The rest of it, maybe $900, gets immediately loaned out to someone else who's buying a car or a house. The whole system is basically built on the quiet hope that we don't all show up and ask for our cash back at the same time.
All right, now let's get into the really sneaky stuff. These are the hidden forces that are always constantly changing what your money is worth, whether it's in the bank or in your pocket. These are the invisible price tags, interest and inflation.
Interest is a total double-edged sword. When you owe money, interest is the price you pay for borrowing. It can be your absolute worst enemy, just chipping away at your wealth. But when you save money, interest is your reward. It becomes your best employee, one that works 24/7, never takes a vacation, and its only job is to make you more money.
Let's watch this employee get to work. Imagine you invest just $100. You stick it somewhere and just let it be. After some time, thanks to the power of compound interest, which is just a fancy way of saying your interest starts earning its own interest, your money starts to multiply. Boom, that $100 becomes $200. You didn't have to do a thing.
And then, given more time, it happens again. This is the financial cheat code, right here. It starts off slow, but over the years, that growth just explodes. It's not about getting rich quick, it's about getting rich patiently.
Now for the other invisible force, inflation. This is the reason you can't just stick that $100 under your mattress. Inflation is like a slow leak in your money's buying power. Your $5 bill will always be a $5 bill, but next year, it's going to buy you fewer instant noodles than it does today. It's why your savings have to be working, just to stay ahead.
Okay, so we know how money works. Now let's talk about how the system decides if you're allowed to borrow it. And this all comes down to your financial reputation, which gets boiled down to one simple, incredibly powerful 3-digit number, your credit score.
And here is the absolute most important thing to understand about the score. It has nothing to do with how rich you are. You could be a millionaire with a terrible score, or have $10 to your name and have a great one. It's just a grade on how trustworthy you are. It answers one question for lenders. If we loan this person money, what are the odds we'll get it back?
So how does this mysterious number get calculated? Well, it mostly looks at 4 things. The biggest one by far is your payment history. Do you pay your bills on time? Simple as that. Then there's credit utilization. How much of your available credit are you actually using? The lower, the better. And finally, they look at how long you've had credit and the different types of credit you have, just to see if you can handle responsibility. Okay, we've covered the personal stuff. Let's zoom out. The entire economy is constantly moving in cycles, like waves. There are good times and not so good times. So, what happens when that whole wave starts to crash?
Well, that slowdown is called a recession. The technical definition is about 6 months of the economy shrinking. But what it feels like is just uncertainty. Jobs are harder to find, companies stop hiring, and everyone clutches their wallets a little tighter, you know?
And honestly, this is the best analogy for it. The economy is like a party. You've got the boom when the music is loud and the drinks are flowing. Then you hit the peak, and maybe the lights flicker a little. That leads to the bust. The party's over, and now it's just sad lo-fi beats playing in the background. But here's the thing about recessions. They always end. Eventually, you get the reset, fueled by hope and some very overpriced coffee, and a new party starts all over again.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important part of all this. Now that we know the rules of the game, how do we actually start winning? It's all about putting your money to work. Investing is your #1 weapon against inflation, and it's how you really grow your money. There are a few main ways to do it. You can buy stocks, which are just tiny little ownership slices of a company. You can buy bonds, which is like you giving a loan to a government or a big company. You can buy funds, which are basically pre-made baskets of lots of different stocks and bonds. And of course, there's real estate, buying actual physical property. But what's the real secret behind all wealth? At its core, it's simple. Create value. Steve Jobs built a revolutionary phone that brought immense value to people's lives, and they happily paid for it. A luxury brand creates the perception of value and status in a handbag, and people pay a fortune for it. If you can figure out a way to create value for other people, you are on the path to building wealth. And that leads us to the final, most crucial ingredient in this whole recipe. It's not a secret stock pick, it's not a huge salary, it's time. Because real, lasting wealth doesn't happen overnight. It's built by making small, smart moves consistently over decades. So we'll end on this one question. After everything, the taxes, the banks, the interest, the credit scores, it really all boils down to this. Your money is never just sitting still. It's always working. So the only question you have to ask yourself is it working for you or is it working against you? The choice really is yours.